Let's begin with the chapter Indigo, a chapter that delves into history. We live in a democratic country, an independent nation, and we got this independence years and years ago. Many fought for it, many died for it. But they were led by a leader who was empathic, understanding, inspiring, selfless, and compassionate. And he was none other than the great soul Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, known to us as the Mahatma, who played a huge role in the Indian freedom struggle. He was known for his leadership qualities and how he influenced people not only living in this era but also people living beyond centuries. When Mahatma Gandhi came to India, he went to three places in order to solve the problems of the various people over there. And this is how he began with the civil disobedience and non cooperation movement. The story highlights the story Indigo highlights the unequal economic system that existed during the colonial British rule. It resulted in the Indian peasants suffering while the British planters exploited them. It also highlights the importance of Gandhi's decision to take up their case and give them justice. In this chapter, we are going to follow an incident in the life of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, known to us as the Mahatma or the Great Soul. This lesson covers a farmers' uprising led by Gandhi in Champaran, a district in the foothills of the Himalayas near the Kingdom of Nepal, now in Bihar. Gandhiji narrates the course of events from that period of his life to the American journalist Louis Fisher, who has written this particular story. Through the chapter, you will get to know much more about the personality of Mahatma Gandhi, his qualities, who understand and learned about the plight of common man. It helped the reader to realize the power of truth and its triumph over injustice. The light of truth will always prevail and it will always conquer. So let us begin with the explanation of the chapter. First, let us know about the author Louis Fisher. The author Louis Fisher was a Jewish American journalist born in Philadelphia in 1896. He wrote for the New York Times, the Saturday Review, and for European and Asian publication. He served as a volunteer in the British Army between 1918 and 1920. He wrote books like The Life of Lenin, The Life of Mahatma Gandhi, Gandhi and Stalin, The War in Spain, and many more. His book on Gandhi was adapted into the Academy Award winning film Gandhi, released in 1982. Indigo means the chapter is an excerpt from his book, The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. The book has been reviewed as one of the best books ever written on Gandhi by Times Educational Supplement. This story, Indigo, is a real life account from Mahatma Gandhi's life. The author and the narrator, Louis Fisher, visited Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi in his ashram in Sevagram in 1942 and interviews him, and Gandhi narrated him the incident which prompted him to fight against the British. Now, let us talk about the theme of this particular chapter, Indigo. As per the theme given in the book is concerned, it says, the leadership shown by Mahatma Gandhi to secure justice for oppressed people through convincing argumentation and negotiation. This chapter focuses on the leadership qualities of Mahatma Gandhi, how, as a leader, he influenced many and inspired many and took everybody in, and as a team, they fought together. It is not impossible to conquer and win over the powerful. If the people get together and fight against injustice, no power in the world no power in the world can stop them from achieving what they desire. The chapter Indigo emphasizes the fact that an effective leadership can solve any kind of problem without any harm to anybody. The chapter deals with the way Mahatma Gandhi solved the problem of poor sharecroppers of Champaran in a non-violent way. Now, regarding the sub-theme, the contribution made by anonymous Indians to the freedom movement. Even after many years, we sometimes do not remember the contribution of common people towards independence movement. Now, regarding the important character, the first important character who is none other than the national and political leader Mahatma Gandhi, who secured justice for the indigo sharecroppers of Champaran. In this story, he fought against the unjust landlord system and oppressive British policies. He reformed the society in Champaran, provided the villagers with better living conditions, and helped them progress socially. He helped the peasants of Champaran to become self-reliant, to become self-independent. The second important character is Rajkumar Shukla, who was an illiterate peasant from Champaran in Bihar who mustered the courage, means who gathered the courage to travel miles to meet Gandhi. He resisted the injustices faced by indigo sharecroppers and was determined and persistent in his effort to bring the injustices to Gandhi's notice. He was a courageous, determined peasant among the sharecroppers who approached Gandhi with the request of freeing them from the injustices of the landlord system. Next is Louis Fisher, who is the narrator and the author of this story, who visits Gandhi in his ashram in Shevagram in 1942 and interviews him. Next is Rajendra Prasad, a lawyer and social activist who provided counsel and support to Gandhi during the Champaran Satyagraha. He became the first president of independent India. There are other few common people who contributed towards the freedom movement, which we will get to know once we start with the chapter. Now, what is the genre of this particular chapter? It is biography. Now, before begin with the chapter, you first need to know what is actually sharecropping. Now, what is sharecropping? A sharecropping is a system of agriculture in which a landowner allows a tenant, a renter, to use the land in return for a share of the crops produced on the land. A sharecropper is basically a tenant farmer who rents land and who gives part of his or her crop as rent. A sharecropper will pay the landowner with part of the harvest rather than money. So, the indigo plant has been an enduring symbol of British exploitation, which you will get to know in the chapter, throughout the independence struggle. It had caused the cultivators to protest against the unfair practices of the British Raj. Mahatma Gandhi started his first satyagraha at Champaran in Bihar against the British policy of Tin Kathia system implemented on the indigo cultivators of the region. This later came to be known as the Champaran Satyagraha. The Champaran Satyagraha of 1917 was the first Satyagraha movement led by Mahatma Gandhi in British India and is considered a historically important rebellion in the Indian independence movement. It was a farmers' uprising that took place in Champaran district of Bihar during the British colonial period. The farmers were protesting against having to grow indigo, means they were forced to grow indigo with barely any payment for it. It was based on Gandhi's principle of ahimsa and non-violence and standing up for the truth, and how he helped the sharecroppers of Champaran. Now, a short introduction to the chapter. Louis Fisher described in this excerpt how Mahatma Gandhi took up the cause of the poor peasants of Champaran in 1916 who were exploited by the British landlords. Champaran was an important place then for indigo cultivation. Indigo, as you can see it in the picture, was a cash crop, and Britishers got much revenue and money because of that particular cash crop, indigo. As per the long term contract between the British landlords and Champaran peasants, the British compel the peasants of Champaran to grow indigo plantation, which is a crop, and the source of indigo dye on 15% of their land. Means the rent which they were lending on 15% of their land, they were forced to grow indigo and surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent. The indigo sharecroppers in Champaran were being cheated and exploited by landlords and British planters. After Germany developed synthetic indigo, means artificial indigo, the landlords asked the tenants, the sharecroppers, to pay them compensation of being released from the 15% agreement. This brought misery to the peasants, and Rajkumar Shukla, who was a courageous, determined peasant among the sharecroppers, who approached Gandhi with the request of freeing them from the injustice of the landlord system. Gandhiji took up the cause of the poor peasants. He served justice for them through convincing arguments and negotiation. Gandhiji stood against the injustice of landlord system in Bihar and also against the exploitation of these poor farmers by the rich and influential English landlords. Indigo is one of the many episodes of Gandhi's long political struggle. This famous episode is known as the Champaran Satyagraha of 1916. Gandhiji's long and heroic struggle ended with the victory of the first civil disobedience movement. How? We will get to know in the chapter. The English landlords were compelled to return 25% of the money they had extorted from the sharecroppers. Now, in our next presentation, we shall we shall go through the line by line explanation. Thank you.